Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk, a series of conversations about smart buildings, connecting key thinkers in the real estate industry with each other and with you. I'm Jules Barker, Global Director of Product at WiredScore, the certification company dedicated to making the world's buildings smarter and better connected. In this series, we cover topics like how to create a smart building, user-first design, smart buildings and sustainability, and the importance of the right technical infrastructure. And that's what we're focusing on today with our guest, Marc Gille, founder and CEO of Thingit, the largest smart real estate operations platform on the market. Marc, thanks very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Jules.
Marc, I wonder if we could start with you giving us an introduction to your company.
Of course. So I am what you would call a serial entrepreneur. This is my third company. It's probably interesting to look back to the second, which was a business process management platform, which I sold to a large US company. And what the platform was used for was integrating business processes in the financial services world. And what Thingit does, we're transitioning the capabilities of integration of business processes, etc., to the real estate world. That makes it an enterprise platform.
And how much overlap is there, Marc, between finance integrations and real estate integrations?
Finance knows much better about software and integration these days. They have pretty much 40 years ahead, right? So real estate is just learning it. And I think what finance can already do is connecting people, connecting systems, connecting data is what we will need to make a building fully operational towards the needs of today's digitalization requirements.
And in real estate, do you think there's a lot further to go in that understanding?
We will see a full connection, a full penetration in about 5 years from now. We see it starting everywhere, specifically with the corporates, but an understanding that all of that is an enterprise task and not a task for a point solution, such as desk booking tools or something. That is something people are starting to learn right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a huge amount of growing enthusiasm for technology in the real estate market, and that's obviously where you come in. How, though, do you think about and how do you help your clients make sure they're installing the right technology, not just technology for technology's sake?
The very first thing you need to do, make sure that your platform is hardware agnostic. It can connect to everything. And that means to everything from a vendor perspective as well as to everything from a technology perspective. So it has to go from building management systems to retrofit sensors such with technologies like an ocean, parking systems, elevators, access control, parcel stations, lockers, etc. The second thing is look at digitalization of your property always from an enterprise perspective. We're talking to a lot of different people in a lot of different roles. So you need things like entitlements, you need things like single sign-on. So all the enterprise capabilities you have with things like enterprise resource planning systems for ages. And then make sure that you're focused on the perspective of the different stakeholders. Interesting enough, if you look at the main goals of a corporate real estate manager today to make sure that hybrid office works, that people are that people's well-being on site is supported, that employees work efficiently and comfortably. This seems quite different from the primary goals of, let's say, an asset manager who wants to operate the building efficiently, satisfy ESG requirements, etc. But if you look a little bit deeper, all of these use cases have overlap, and they have overlapping needs with regard to the underlying platform. All of them need the building structure to be understood. They need the building information model in the system. That's one of the ingredients. You always need the BIM.
One of the ways that WiredScore thinks about technology is the outcomes it delivers. And the way that SmartScore looks at it, we say there are 4 outcomes that technology can deliver. There's sustainability, there's efficiency, there's user experience, and there's future-proofing. Do you have a view about the hierarchy of those and which are the most important elements for technology to deliver?
I would not even put a priority anywhere. I would say most of the initiatives will help with at least two of those pillars, if not all of them. And you can pick examples where this is going to happen. I mean, take mobility and support for that. That is surely helping, and the support for the hybrid work, right? This is something which helps with the efficiency of employees, for example, co-workers. At the same time, it surely contributes to ESG. So all of these things are interconnected, and they pretty much pay into all of the four accounts, if you will.
But one thing that's clear is that as we go back to the office, we're going back to the same offices that existed 2 years ago, and in many cases 10, 20 or more years ago. And so getting technology right in those buildings is going to require retrofitting. Do you have a view about how difficult it is, how easy it is, and the steps that you need to take for a successful retrofit?
Interesting enough, most of the digitalization initiatives and use cases can be achieved and materialized as much with retrofit as they can be with new build. First and foremost, a lot of the use cases are not necessarily or not immediately connected to technology. You can do desk booking, you can do parking booking, you can meeting room booking, and these things first without sensor technology. But then the next question is, okay, good, I'm allowing my coworkers to use desks and meeting rooms flexibly with booking. Do I really know whether they show up, or they have decided to stay at home and do everything via video conferencing? And then you start integrating sensors to measure occupancy. That is a retrofit task that obviously requires to connect sensors to the cloud to get the data. That comes with the need for power supply for these sensors. And here you end up with some kind of radio technology. And from a total cost of ownership perspective, all of these retrofit initiatives are probably easily written off against the gain over a period of 6 to 12 months from an ROI perspective.
How much time do you spend helping your clients understand the ROI of the investment they're making?
Specifically for the corporates, the ROI considerations are quite easy, because even with long-term lease, they surely change their buildings and they can reduce the space. For an asset manager, it's much more difficult to justify the investments against operational efficiencies. So that's a bottom line consideration, and the ESG requirements, because ESG requirements are also not trivial to quantify. There's no simple spreadsheet saying if you do this or that, you gain so much on the ESG side. And the regulatory stipulations or restrictions and implications are not that severe, not stringent yet, right?
But what's challenging, I think, for the industry right now is that, as you've said, the landlords, the asset managers, for them, a lot of this investment doesn't return in operational efficiency upsides because that accrues to the service charge. What you're absolutely right is they're defending against leasing downside of stranded assets and other challenges that if you don't invest in this stuff in 3 or 4 years' time or possibly sooner, that's when it'll come to hurt you.
Yeah, I think the big change will be, and that is what I'm expecting over the next 5 years and not earlier, is that those three parties will establish an ecosystem where it will be normal that you procure digitalization services from the others or participate in digitalization initiatives pretty much like hot and cold water, right? So if an asset manager invests into digitalization of their properties, be it new build or retrofit, doesn't matter, they need to benefit from it with regard to their goals regarding operational efficiency, regarding ESG goals, etc. But at the same time, they need to be able to sell that to their clients, and that is beyond the traditional cost model you have in a building. Like heating or something like that. It is a new business. It requires new legal concepts. And if that ecosystem is established, that is really the disruptive driver for full digitalization. And that requires a platform. That requires that enterprise level we have built with Thingit.
It's obviously a great deal harder if you're making these decisions speculatively. And a lot of development, as we know, is done speculatively, where the developer will build a building, fit it out, and has to make a whole load of infrastructure decisions without knowing who the occupier is going to be. How do you recommend a speculative developer or an asset manager on a retrofit thinks about that?
The very first thing you want to understand as a developer, an asset manager, because it applies to the asset managers as well, because retrofit is key. How do you roll out digitalization services efficiently? You need to understand how you do this from a heterogeneous hardware environment support to what are your service providers, etc. And having a platform is one of the key decisions here, because what you cannot afford is bespoke integration projects per property.
So are there other mistakes to be avoided in terms of selecting hardware and infrastructure?
The advice we always give is make sure in pilots that you have an understanding of your entire value chain. Pick use cases, not too many and not too few, and try to materialize those with 1 or 2 buildings, validate those, look at what you have done with regard to the project and judge whether this is a methodology, if you will, you can replicate for other parts of your portfolio, and then get broader. That would be the recommendation here.
Are there minimum levels you think you need to put in terms of hardware? I'm thinking, for example, making sure you have extra fiber runs in place because you might need them in the future. What mistakes can you avoid in that sense?
I think if you're talking about a new build, there are certain things you need to consider right from the start. You should always cater for some kind of additional radio-based infrastructure, because you never know about the use cases of tomorrow. And the use case of tomorrow are the sensors of tomorrow, the actors of tomorrow, and they need to be connected from a data and power perspective. But then, do you really need to buy all of the sensors you're thinking about immediately? No. Why don't you wait for your tenants to come up with requirement? And that is a retrofit thing. That's a retrofit thing which comes after the new build, but connected possibly to the radio infrastructure you already have, to the platform you already have, to the cloud you already have.
So, Marc, another topic I'd love to dig into with you is the subject of data. How important is it, do you think, that the systems that go into a building have common data structures, common ontologies, in order to facilitate the data gathering and management afterwards?
What we do is we have means, we call that stream processing, where we normalize everything which is coming in towards the business meaning of what the sensors are telling us. Imagine an approach to measure desk occupancy, which you could do with measuring the temperature close to a sensor, which indicates that a laptop is standing in front of on top of the desk, or a person is sitting close to the sensor. That gives you an indication of occupancy. And that is the ontology you're looking for. You want data in the system indicating business relevant data. And then you want to access those across your entire portfolio with sufficient performance, with means to analyze those data which are specific to real estate. So it's not just a simple slicing and dicing approach to drill down into a BIM hierarchy, like sites, floors, spaces, or something like this. The system which does that needs to understand the semantics of a building to perform proper data analytics. So from physical data to business data to analytics, which understand that we're looking into a building and not into a supply chain or a financial market model.
I think that's probably about all we've got time for now. The main point I think I've really taken away is the importance of getting the foundations or getting the right platform in place, and everything else can be built upon that. But I just want to say thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us today.
It was a real pleasure, Jules. Thank you for your time as well.
And thank you very much for watching. You can find more videos like this on our YouTube channel.